Hello, everyone.
Hey, guys.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Cole.
You're listening to Borrowed Bones, a podcast about fucked up, interesting, and toxic families. Today, we are in part 2 of the Sexton family.
Yes, episode 10 overall.
Yeah, this
We're
is
in the
episode 10.
double digits.
Yep, finally in the double digits. I got a little alert from my website that I use to track all of this, and they said that only 1% of podcasts make it to 10 episodes.
Really?
Yeah. I guess a lot of them try, and then they just crash.
I mean, everyone's got a podcast today.
Yeah, but not one that they posted last week.
Yeah, true. Yeah, everyone dabbles, I guess. Yeah.
We are in the 1%.
Yeah, 1%ers.
Feels like weird to say.
Outlaw bikers and rich people.
Yeah, that's a great combo. Mm-hmm. This will be a 3-parter. I've discovered there's just too much to keep track of. I do want to give the kids that did speak out a chance for their story to be heard, because it's mostly about the parents, which, of course, they're the ones that did all this.
Perpetrators. So, yeah.
But I think kids often get lost in all of this. We focus on what happened to them, but not really how they handled it, what they went through.
Processed it as individuals.
Yeah. Also, before we start, a few quick reminders.
Shameless plugs.
Do have an Instagram now. You guys can thank Cole for that. He pushed pretty hard along with some other close friends. You can thank all of them. Our Instagram is Borrowed Bones Podcast. Straightforward, simple, no numbers or anything weird. So go ahead and give us a follow.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong. I want to know that I did need this.
We'll post some thirst traps in the future for us.
Thirst trap?
You haven't heard the phrase?
Yeah, but why would we post one?
Of a skeleton or something. I don't know. Thirst traps for necrophiles.
See, now you're giving me projects to do. You don't run the social media. I do. I'm not doing that. Yeah, maybe I will. Who knows? We'll see.
I feel like that's an album title. Thirst traps for necrophiles.
Ew.
Cannibal Corpse, new album.
Stop. That's not what our podcast is. If you don't want to follow us on Instagram, you can please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. It helps us quite a bit.
You got 5 minutes to kill. Write a few words about us.
I do want to shout out to our first 2 reviews that we got.
Oh.
The first one we received, the username is Teal Paradise. Oh. And they had a long one, so I snipped it down a little bit to get the gist of it.
Give us the bullet points.
Yeah. They said, Borrowed Bones is an absolute gem for true crime and history enthusiasts. The storytelling is captivating, well-researched, and delivered in a way that keeps you engaged from start to finish. Sarah does an incredible job of bringing lesser-known stories to light, making each episode feel personal yet informative.
That's very kind.
Yeah, and then he signs off, or they, I'm not sure. They sign off with, if you love a mix of true crime, history, and thought-provoking narratives, this podcast is a must-listen.
It's very nice of one of your sisters to write that.
It wasn't. It's not.
I'm just...
They don't speak that way. I tried figuring out whose words that, whose voice that was.
It doesn't sound like anyone I know in person.
No, if they did, they used AI or something to mask it. So thanks, Teal Paradise, whoever you are. There was another review from Alex J. And he said, this podcast is very well produced and easy to listen to. A+, keep it up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Short and sweet.
Yep.
Succinct.
We like Alex. Yeah. We like Teal Paradise too. We like anyone who reviews. You can say we suck. I don't care. Well, I might care a little, but not that much.
I'm used to people on the internet telling me I suck. I used to have a hashtag that trended for a while. Hashtag Cole Waterman sucks was a thing. Oh. Yeah. One of the criminal defendants I wrote about started that.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. Well, we've avoided it long enough. I said everything I needed to say, did all the plugs.
Done with the preamble. Mm-hmm. Let's get to the meat.
Yep. We should get back into this family. And
all right, where do we leave off?
Well, I just wanted to remind everyone that I'm not related to them.
Oh, yeah. That you know of.
I do know for a fact because I have DNA testing, which I didn't compare to theirs, but I have the 23andMe and I have Ancestry.com, and I looked and my family wasn't where their family was.
We're all related in the big human family.
We all just borrow bones from each other, you might say.
Yeah. Oh, we got a title.
All right, enough screwing around. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
We left off part 1 having gone through more of Michelle's storyline. She was the one to crack it all open, if
She's
you
the
remember.
daughter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, the one that was the first one to speak out, and she spoke about how everything that's going on, and now she's living with her Uncle Otis in and out of different homes. Yeah. Right. And then we ended with a little tease into Pixie's storyline.
Oh, yeah. Pixie's the oldest of
daughter.
The Sexton daughters, and the oldest who's still living
in their house.
In the house.
Yep. Mm-hmm. She's the favorite. She's daddy's girl. So we are going to start following Pixie's storyline.
Okay.
Pixie had a friend in high school. Not much of a friend, more of a classmate because they weren't allowed to hang out outside of school.
Yeah,
but
they have a real friend
exactly.
that you only see in school.
Yeah, there was a classmate who took interest in her. Her name is Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Terry liked Pixie, kind of felt bad for her, wanted to hang out.
Male or female Terry?
Female.
Okay.
After one summer break, Terry noticed that Pixie returned to school pregnant.
Yeah, that'll catch your eye.
Yep. Pixie claimed it was a Navy man that knocked her up, and he's gone now.
It's always the sailors.
Mm-hmm.
How convenient.
Pixie was a senior in high school, and she was due to give birth that October. This is the
early 90s?
89-90 school year. At the same high school, a new boy recently enrolled. His name is Joel Good.
Oh, is he going to be a good guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a good guy.
Fitting name.
Yeah, it really is. Joel moved in with his Aunt Teresa after moving out of his grandparents' house because both of his parents passed away.
Okay.
Joel became friends with Terry, and Joel had a crush on Terry's twin sister, Tracy.
Okay.
When Joel asked Tracy to the prom, she politely declined and told him she was already seeing someone. But Tracy and Terry wanted to help Joel, and they also liked Pixie, so they thought maybe they would go well together, set up a little matchmaking there. Joel was he was slower. He was held back a year, and he did have learning disability.
Challenges?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Pixie was also held back a year.
Yeah. And we know her situation.
Yeah, she was held back a year. Actually, she was held back a year in elementary school because she missed 2 months of school because she got burned so bad in a cooking accident at home.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds legit.
Yep. That wasn't looked into.
Why would it be?
Exactly. Pixie agreed to go to the prom with Joel, and Eddie Lee surprisingly allowed it.
Oh, I was waiting for the hammer to come down.
Well, Pixie was pregnant.
Yeah.
Remember?
Oh, yeah, he's fine.
They can have boyfriends after...
He's taken the V card.
Yes.
Oh.
When Joel picked up Pixie at her house, he had a corsage ready for her. He was excited.
He's doing the
prom.
The thing.
Yeah.
The gentleman thing he's supposed to do.
When she came out, she was already wearing a corsage from her dad.
Creepy.
And she didn't take it off. She never took Joel's corsage.
Ugh.
Yeah. After prom, it just fizzled out. They didn't hang out or anything. That was it. But then the summer after graduation, Joel decided to shoot his shot again and invited Pixie to a family cookout.
Okay. So they're both 18-ish at this point. Okay.
They went to the family cookout, and then for their next date, Joel was allowed to go over to Pixie's house.
Ooh.
So soon enough, Joel was visiting her house a few times a week.
Back and forth.
Yeah. Joel's Aunt Teresa mentioned when Pixie and Joel would spend time at her house, they would sometimes bring Pixie's brother Willie to hang out with them, and they would all just sit and watch the TV in silence. She said they were the quietest teens ever.
Okay.
So Teresa's starting to pick up some odd mannerisms.
Yeah.
Teresa would also go on to talk about the blank, far-off stare that the Sexton kids did.
The 1,000-yard stare.
The Sexton stare.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of children with trauma have that stare. For this family, it was very obvious because 12 kids were doing it.
Yeah.
Teresa was never really too sure about Pixie and her family. She did hear a rumor from a boy in the neighborhood that the Sextons were in a cult. The boy said that they would do weird rituals, and sometimes the Sexton boys would come to school all beat up and bruised.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though Teresa was having some doubts, Joel was just smitten, and he wanted to marry Pixie.
And obviously, I'm assuming he's aware that she's pregnant. Like, it's starting to show.
Yeah.
Okay. So he knows that his crush is pregnant with somebody else's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just happy to be a part of the family, you know? In September, Joel tells Teresa that he was going to move to Montana with Pixie and her family.
He tells his aunt and guardian that he's, maybe, I don't know, he's a guardian at 18, but anyway, his closest relative, that he's moving with his girlfriend and her entire family to the wilds of Montana.
Yes.
All right.
Eddie Lee was going to buy a big ranch on the top of a mountain with hundreds of acres.
With his, welfare cash?
It's that multi-million-dollar deal with Wendy's and Burger King.
Oh, yeah.
He keeps saying that, but we know that's not real, but he's saying that. It was time for Teresa now to have a chat with the Sextons. She was like, all right, you're taking my boy? Fuck that. So Teresa goes over to the house on Caroline Street. When she knocks on the door, Eddie Lee invites Teresa to sit out on the deck with him.
Okay.
Eddie Lee then starts asking Teresa about Joel's parents, moves into insurance information, social security
normal
questions.
Things, normal topics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Teresa didn't buy it. She found him to be very nosy and didn't like what he was doing.
Yeah.
Eddie Lee was very quick to dismiss any of Teresa's concerns about moving to Montana and spoke about it as if it was done, already purchased, ready to go.
Got a home waiting for us.
This is when he brought up that multi-million-dollar deal to Teresa.
That two competing fast food chains have somehow decided to work together on, because that happens.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because what would he be promoting for both of them? What would he be doing? He's promoting the Futuretrons.
Is this getting into sci-fi and robots?
Yes. I never found an explanation for what it was. It was just like future beings that have powers and people want to get us. It's more of a paranoia. Like, we're all powerful. And they even made, I think Michelle had to paint or draw some mock-ups for him.
I'm sure those were elaborate.
With like them in these futuristic costumes, kind of so Jetson vibes.
Okay. Like Iron Man suits?
Or like Star Trek.
Okay.
Like Trekkie. Yeah. Right. I saw a picture. I'll try to look for it and I can post it. I hope I can find it again. But yes, he was saying they were going to promote the Futuretrons and he was going to bring his daughter Lana with him because they were the ones that had that line on the palm of their hand. He's telling Teresa all of this.
Oh.
Yeah, he's saying these words out loud.
Okay.
Yes. Teresa said later, after she spoke to officials at the end of all this, Teresa's recalling this and she says, his hands looked normal. Yeah. Like, Teresa's not fazed by any of this bullshit.
She's a normal person.
Right. Like a
crazy huckster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You hear things about, Eddie Lee was smart and cunning. And I think he was to certain people. Yeah. But I think with anyone with an ounce of suspicion, if anyone questioned him on anything, he didn't have like a backup.
Yeah.
He would go straight to Futuretrons or like he would just kind of give it up.
That's how most con men work.
Yeah.
It's like if you just have
a little bit of questioning.
Mark have the basic common sense to ask a follow-up question or two, usually the house of cards collapses. That's just how it works.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not blaming any of his family members. I mean, he has years and years of brainwashing them. But I'm talking people like Teresa, the neighbor, you know, these people that are like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, he wasn't that fantastic at everything. So for the police to not be able to track anything down on him, I kind of feel like they were lazy leading up to all of this. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion. It's not a fact. It's just my opinion.
It's an alternative fact.
Yeah, right. Eddie Lee then went on to say that if any of the satanic cults knew of Lana and her line on the palm of her hand, that they would be after her, they would sacrifice her, and they would go all out.
Okay, so he's tapping into the satanic panic of the era.
Yes. Teresa told Eddie Lee that Joel would not be moving with them to Montana, and he needed to stay home and help with his younger brother and get his life started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did he react?
He accepted that. Eddie Lee just said, okay.
Oh, no, Joel, the boy, did he?
Well, a few weeks later, Joel came home from the Sextons and said that he and Pixie broke up.
Oh.
So nothing ever came of it because they broke up.
Yeah.
While they were split, Joel got a job and his aunt helped him get a small little 1-bedroom apartment. He was living on his own.
Okay.
Yeah. Then New Year's of 1991, Pixie shows back up in Joel's life. Joel's other aunt, Velva, not
Vulva?
Volva. I know.
Malva?
I know.
Dolores.
Seinfeld reference. Yep.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. So Joel's other aunt, Velva, lived near the apartment that he moved into, so she would help check in on him.
Okay.
It still wasn't too far from Teresa, but she was like right around the corner.
All right.
Aunt Velva came home from work one day and saw Joel, Pixie, and Pixie's daughters, Dawn and Shasta, on her couch watching TV. November of 1990, Shasta was born.
Okay.
Now this is New Year's of 91. She's a few months old.
Okay.
And Dawn is already a child.
Yeah.
She's already in the world. So surprise, I have another baby. Now I want to be your girlfriend again, Joel.
Yeah.
But turns out the Sextons never moved to Montana, and Pixie was claiming that Shasta was from the same Navy man that gave her Dawn.
The same Navy man?
Yep, the same one.
Oh, well, that's convenient. So he comes to any port in a storm, and then for some reason, a year later is back in the same port, finds the same girl to knock up a second time.
Yep.
All right.
Just a one-night stand twice, and that's it.
Why not just say it's a different Navy man?
It's Pixie.
Anyway.
She doesn't know. Pixie and Joel went right back into dating again. This time it was way more intense. Joel would spend days and nights at the Sextons.
Okay. They're older a little bit.
Yeah, they're a little bit older. And now he does live on his own. So
Yeah.
Teresa doesn't have her eyes on him. He can do what he wants. We're going to fast forward through the year to Christmas Eve of 91. We're at the new year. Now we're at the end.
Okay.
Joel spent the holiday with his own family, and they noticed how he started to change physically. He was more disheveled, a little more gaunt,
Not
unkempt.
taking care of himself.
Yeah.
Fitting into the Sexton archetype.
Mm-hmm. And then a few weeks go by, and Joel's aunts haven't heard from him. They would call the Sexton house asking where Joel was, and they would always be given the same answer of, he's not here. In January of 1992, a month later, Joel's little brother, Danny, got a call from Joel saying that Pixie was pregnant and that he was going to marry her.
You chose your words carefully. Not that I got her pregnant, but that just she is pregnant. Okay.
Joel did tell his brother Danny that it's weird because he uses condoms, but somehow it must not have worked.
Well, at least he was using condoms.
Yeah. They planned to get married 1 month later on Valentine's Day.
Romantic.
At this point, Joel's family is putting some pieces together. They're all noticing the Sexton stare, and Teresa she said to her sister or her dad, there's something wrong with that family.
Yeah.
She's starting to see that it's the whole group. Valentine's Day came and went. Joel, nothing.
Marriage? Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Joel's brother Danny was waiting around. He was the best man. He was actually excited because he's happy for his brother, and he was, never in a wedding before or anything. He had a tux, all of it.
Yeah.
They didn't hear anything. Nothing.
So
the day went by.
No call, no show from
Wedding.
the guests of honor.
Yes.
Okay.
They heard nothing.
Cute.
A few days later, Joel did go to his Aunt Teresa's house alone. He told her that he and Pixie got married a few days before Valentine's Day, and that the ceremony was at Eddie Lee's sister's house, and Eddie Lee officiated the wedding. Teresa asked why they didn't tell anyone and why they couldn't have just waited a few days until Valentine's Day. Like, what's up with the secrecy? And he said this is what they wanted, and they told him that this was the best way to do it.
Okay. Well, I mean, it seems like he's easily controlled. Likes people at their word.
Yeah, and he's a sweet, everything I read about him, he's just a nice, loving, caring man, and he just wants to have a family. He wants that simple life. However, Pixie did miscarry that February.
Okay.
So nothing ever came of that child. Now, we're caught up with Pixie and Joel. We're going to jump a little bit to another. There's a lot happening all at once with this family. We're in April of 1992 now.
All right.
This is when the DHS took the kids away from the family home.
All the minors.
All the minors, yes.
Because there's still a few older ones that are allowed to live there, right?
Well, Pixie and Sherry had to move because they had kids.
Yeah, they have kids, so they'd take their kids out.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
there might be
a couple 17
but there's no minors there.
Yeah.
After the kids were taken from the home, later that same day, a shelter hearing occurred, and the DHS worker, Wayne Welsh, interviewed the kids again.
Mm-hmm.
This time, they were talking.
They spilled the beans?
A lot. So here's your warning, everyone.
Trigger.
Yeah. There's a lot, so turn it off now if you don't want to hear it. Charles, the 17-year-old son, he began crying. He said that both parents beat him, and one time Eddie Lee made Charles and his brother Matt stand naked in the living room in front of everyone with their arms outstretched holding encyclopedias.
Oh, to see how long they could do it?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Naked?
I mean, yeah, it's clearly it's clearly an abusive action.
Charles also said that his mom choked and scratched him after she accused Charles of molesting his little sister, Lana. Charles said he didn't do that, and I don't know. I don't know what the fact is on that. Either way, May choked and scratched her child.
Mm-hmm.
Charles also said that his dad would beat May and once pointed a shotgun at her head. Another son, Matt, he said that Michelle told him that she saw Pixie and their dad having sex on the couch.
That tracks.
Yeah.
I feel like I know what the spoiler is going to, or not the spoiler, but I know what the identity of the children's father is going to be, and it's not going to be a sailor.
I think we all know at this point who the identity of this. Yeah. I'm not really trying to.
There's no phantom sailor who comes back every year to knock up the same girl and leave.
No, we know who the dad is. It's so gross. Anyway, James Sexton, one of the other sons, he's 16 at this time. He said everyone was beaten and that
it's a free-for-all. Everyone's hitting everyone.
Yeah. And then, quote, there's a lot of sex in the family.
So it's just like a incestuous pile, like a free-for-all.
Yeah, we'll get more stories. Yeah. James mentioned a game that they called the Lovin' Belly. Yep. The Lovin' Belly game was when James and his younger sister Kim, who's the youngest.
Yeah, she's the baby of the family.
Like 8 or 7. Yeah. I don't know when this happened, but she's the youngest. Yeah. James and his youngest sister Kim would have to sniff each other's stomachs, armpits, legs, and feet. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
That was it. That's the game.
Oh.
Yeah. They did weird stuff like this. I don't know.
Like for Eddie, is Eddie like watching them do it?
I don't know. James, that's how he said it. So these kids, again, give fragmented pieces.
It's in kid speak.
I'm assuming that Eddie Lee watched. To me, this looks like a predator who is making weird things seem normal.
Yeah.
So when he asks for a weirder thing.
It's incremental.
It feels like something like that. That's my only guess. Or James isn't telling us another piece, which could be a mix of both.
Yeah, who knows? Either way, it's bizarre.
Yeah. James also said that Eddie Lee would typically use the belt to whoop them. And when they were 18, they graduated from the belt and went to the fist. Mm-hmm.
No, I'd be at 18, you don't get to touch me again. Because I'm an adult. And if you touch me, I'm going to touch you back.
Yeah.
And we have the same legal standing at that point.
More and more stories would arise. Eddie Lee would promise them a trip to Disney World or the Mountaintop Ranch in Montana, all these like good things, but they always came with a price.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a stick and carrot thing, and the stick was always worse than that carrot. The carrot never existed.
Yeah. Not a carrot or a stick. It's a stick or a fist.
Yeah, it's a stick or a fist. James said he never wanted to go back home or see his parents again. He said that his dad would shoot him if he went back home.
Sounds accurate.
Yeah. Here are some other stories of abuse that I have. I couldn't really organize exactly when all of these things happened, but in the interviews of the kids.
And often, just from my experience, when kids relate abuse, like their time perspective is off.
Yes.
We as adults like to think when, where, what, but kids,
don't.
Dad touched me. When did this happen? Was it last week? Last year? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which one? Yeah. Like they don't think in the way that an adult would to remember the date, the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And these kids weren't allowed to be outside a whole lot. I mean, they did go to school, so I guess they could know the date.
Yeah.
But they
their
were
day-to-day seems pretty similar. Like every day is routine, so
over
there's not a lot
time.
of differentiation between when things happen.
Yeah, their memories are
It's
blurred.
all one long day, one long nightmare.
Yeah, so here are some more stories from them. Michelle said that she got the fist once for talking to a black person.
Oh, just for that. So he's a racist.
Surprise!
Too.
Surprise!
Yeah.
They're
I guess
racist.
we didn't touch on that. It never really came up, but yeah, that tracks. I mean, why would they not be?
Yep. Well, you have to be better than someone.
Yeah. We might be incestuous, but at least we ain't like them. What?
Yeah.
That aren't incestuous?
I know. It doesn't make any sense. The kids also mentioned that whenever they got a beating, they were always naked.
Mm-hmm.
One time, Eddie Lee paddled the kids just to see who could last the longest.
Mm.
And May would sometimes join in on these beatings.
Yeah, that figures.
Mm-hmm. Children would be locked in closets for a day or more at a time. Michelle herself was locked in a closet once for buying a deck of cards. Yeah. While she was in there, Eddie Lee sprayed roach spray through the crack, causing Michelle to pass out.
Yeah.
Now, May, at this point, was actually feeling bad for Michelle and took her out of the closet.
Oh.
Yeah. But when Eddie Lee found out, he beat May and put Michelle back in the closet.
Hmm. See, May, there's no point in being on his side.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
He doesn't love you.
No.
The kids said that their mom knew what was happening, but that she was too scared to say anything. So the kids are kind of split on like blaming their mom. They'll tell stories like, yeah, my mom did this. But then the older ones will say, but she was also a part of it.
It's the typical good cop, bad cop with parents of like, when even though they're both abusive, one's always going to be a little bit worse.
Yeah.
So the lesser seems good by comparison.
Yeah, that's true.
He just didn't do as much shit to you. That's it.
Yeah. She allowed all of it, though.
Yeah.
The kids were not allowed to make phone calls. There were only 2 phones in the house, which is it's pretty normal.
It's not unusual.
One was in the hallway and one was in the master bedroom. Eddie Lee would randomly hit redial on the phone to see if they called anyone. Redial, for anyone young who's listening, is a button you could push back in the day when you didn't know who called you because you didn't have caller ID or a way to
call
see.
The last number that was placed.
And he's actively cold calling numbers that he doesn't know.
Like, what does he say to people on the other end? Like when they just pick up, like, hello, like, what's he? Hi, this is Eddie Lee. Did anyone from my household call you recently?
Yeah.
Like,
you never got phone calls randomly like that?
Remember, star 69 was the way to look up who had called you.
Ah.
Yeah. Before caller ID, you could star 69.
That's right.
And it would tell you the last number who called your phone. But you didn't know who it was necessarily.
Yeah. Well, when the redialing randomly was not enough for Eddie, he would buy a device from Radio Shack that would record all of the phone calls. Because these kids got smart, and if they did make a phone call, they would just quickly call like the weather service.
Yeah.
Just to be like, oh, we checked the weather, Dad. That's what we did.
Just a generic number.
Right. Now, here's another thing that Eddie Lee would say. I forgot what child said this, but he would go around and say, I got some butt tonight, or I'll be up tonight getting some butt.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
who would he say this to? Just
around his family, around the house. Like, oh, I got some butt tonight. Like, as like a, but like it's about his children.
Yeah.
Like he's like bragging to his family about abusing them. It's so fucked up. One time he took the boys into the bathroom and he measured all of their penises. Michelle told Michelle told this story, and in telling this story, Michelle was able to recite all of their sizes.
All of her brothers' penis sizes.
Yes. And then she relayed the story that Charles was the shortest, and Eddie Lee made fun of him for it. So Charles then responded as like a child would, and he said, it's because I wasn't hard like the rest. And then Eddie Lee offered another try, And Charles refused.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Yep. We're going to move on. So daughter Lana, she's 12. She confirmed a lot of these stories. And so finally, after 13 years, because all this shit started in 1979. Granted, in the late 70s, early 80s, they were more mischievous kids doing mischievous things. But I mean, I would say there's enough from 1979 to 1992 that the authorities can do something at this point.
And also, maybe I'm getting a little off, but if the powers that be want to get any one of us for something, it can be done.
Yes.
So, no, we can't bring a case against him. I'm like, find something.
Yes, you can.
You can. They brought down Al Capone with tax evasion.
Yeah.
He wasn't convicted of any of his actual real crimes. They could find tax evasion for anyone if they wanted to.
Beating and kidnapping essentially his nephew. Yeah. His adult nephew from the first episode that he did get legal guardian for somehow, but then was holding hostage. Yeah. And the police came. Right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Do something. Fucking do something. Anyway, after all of this time, 13 goddamn years, finally, DHS wrote something substantial in their fucking file. Sorry, I have worked with this for so long.
I get it.
It pisses me off.
Yeah, I see it all the time.
So in the Sexton file, finally, they were able to write, abuse and emotional maltreatment are both substantiated.
Cool.
So that's something like solid. Yeah. Here we go. And then enter Detective Glenn Goe. Goe.
Okay. So he's a police detective.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have Wayne Welsh from DHS, Glenn Goe, detective.
Do you know what department he's from?
Ohio, Canton,
Ohio.
Stark County, Ohio.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cool. Gotcha.
Yes. Otis Sexton is where we're starting with Detective Glenn Goe. Do we remember Otis?
Yes, he's the older brother of Eddie.
Yes.
But he's not like in the family. Like he's not in the household.
No.
He's his own dude.
No, he's fine. Yeah.
He's just his own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't pick your brothers kind of thing.
Right. So Uncle Otis and Michelle, they go to the police station to talk. They want Eddie Lee arrested.
Okay, so his own brother is turned against him. Like, my brother's fucked.
He's taking care of Michelle now. Like, Michelle goes back and forth with Uncle Otis a lot or another foster family. She's just all over the place. Okay. She's trying her best.
Yeah.
So they go to the police station. They want to have Eddie Lee arrested. Detective Goe is the one that interviews them. He wasn't too fond of putting a case together on Michelle's word alone because of her fragmented stories, her Sexton stare, all the things that show that someone's been through shit apparently work against you. If you're bubbly and nice, then you can prove that you've been abused. But if you act abused, anyway, there's a lot of issues. But Detective Goe did not feel like Michelle's word alone would be enough. You
got to have, you got to have corroborating evidence.
Yeah, she was also, she was forgetful too.
Yeah.
She would kind of change stories like you were saying.
Not because it's deliberately like lying or trying to mislead. It's just,
I think she was trying to tell the truth, but things got messy.
Yeah.
Your brain protects you and tries to block a lot of things.
Yeah. And your memory is not a recording device.
Mm-hmm. Wayne Welsh was also at the police station for this interview too. He was more concerned about who the father of Pixie's kids were.
It's about fucking time someone started asking this goddamn question.
Yes. Oh, Wayne Welsh is in the background.
Okay.
I think Welsh was waiting for it to be a real case.
Yeah.
He was frustrated too that he couldn't get anything together.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of DHS workers are
law enforcement. They don't have the power to make an arrest or charge anyone. They just investigate.
Yes, I think Welsh was very eager to be like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so he's like, all right, what about Pixie's kids?
Yeah.
Because that's been weighing on his mind. Michelle said that one night, her and a few of her siblings were also wondering who's the father of Pixie's kids. So one night, Pixie was sleeping in the living room because they had to sleep in extra rooms because they couldn't all fit in the bedrooms. There were so many people in that house. Michelle pretended to be sleepwalking, and she walked over in the area, and she saw her dad and Pixie naked together and told Welsh they were doing what a husband and wife do.
How biblical.
Yeah. So there's that. Now it was Otis's turn to be interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
So Otis, I'm conflicted about him. I think he's good, but also he could have been better.
Okay.
Right? Otis said that he has been aware of the abuse for 10 to 15 years, ever since, 1979.
So why didn't he speak up?
Right.
Not my problem.
He said that his daughters were babysitting for Eddie Lee in May one time. And when they were over at their house, Otis's daughters called him and they said that the kids that were home were tied up.
So when they get to the house to be babysitting, they're already tied up.
Yes. And this occurred at least 3 times with Otis's daughters babysitting Eddie Lee.
So the daughters thought it was weird enough to call their dad and be like, hey, this is kind of weird. We came to babysit our cousins and they're all fucking tied up.
Yeah.
And Otis was just like, well, different strokes.
I mean, Otis is upset about it, but he doesn't. In the future, he does say that he did report at least like 9 times to DHS.
Okay.
However, there's literally no record of it.
That's convenient. If I came to babysit some kids and I found them tied up, I would probably call the police, not DHS. I would be like, hey, I just walked in and there's a bunch of kids bound and gagged.
Yeah. Now, Otis did tell his sister, Eddie Lee's sister, their sister, and she was the one that made the anonymous referral in 1979. Mm-hmm. There was a few anonymous ones, but still, no one called the police.
Yeah.
Otis also suspected incest. There was one time he was on a painting job with Eddie Lee and Sherry, one of the daughters of Eddie Lee.
One of the daughters, yeah.
Sherry was 15 at the time, and Otis saw Eddie Lee and Sherry kiss a few times in a weird way.
Non-father to daughter way.
Yeah.
Well, that's odd. Anyway, keep painting.
Keep painting. Do. Now, when Sherry became pregnant, because remember, she's got a son, Uncle Otis asked her about the father, knowing that the daughters were not allowed to date. He was like, who's the dad?
Yeah.
Sherry said it was a boy that she worked with at a restaurant, that they had sex in the walk-in cooler.
Okay.
Otis, though, was suspicious of the timeline, seeing that Sherry hasn't worked at that restaurant for 15 months.
Okay. I also, this popped in my head, but I know what Pixie claimed that the father of her 2 kids was the same Navy man, but they're in Ohio.
Yeah, I thought that too, but I don't know about the military that much.
I mean, there could be a naval base on the Great Lake that Ohio borders, but I mean,
is it Erie?
Is that Erie? Is that? Yeah, because Superior.
We're getting the hands out.
Yeah, okay. Michigan, Superior, Huron. Yeah, because Ontario is the one that does not touch Michigan. Okay. Ontario's the furthest one. Yeah. So, yeah, Lake Erie. So there could be a naval base. I doubt, Coast Guard for sure, but anyway.
She was saying Navy.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Not a lot of Navy ports in a landlocked state.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, so Otis, he knew more and he just wasn't reporting stuff. No, he should have done more earlier, I think. But he does show up. He does show up at the end. I don't know if he just was trying to hide from all of it, kind of that denial. And then when it came to light, he was like, yeah, I can't. I can't. Yeah. So ultimately a good man, but struggled in the beginning. Detective Go went on to interview Otis's daughters. They're now adults. And they confirmed that the kids were tied to their beds by their wrists and ankles. Their hands were purple and they were sitting in their own waste.
All right.
Other times, when they would babysit, would find the kids naked in a dark room with no furniture, and there would be urine and feces on the floor.
It's amazing that this happened repeatedly, that they would babysit, go home, come back to babysit again. What?
At a certain point, why would Otis trust his kids to be at that house?
Yeah.
Even if you're not calling authorities, you're sending your kids
into a household where other kids are
tied up
and shitting themselves and left to,
God. When James was a toddler, he was found in a playpen in a dark room with a blanket draped over the window. And he must have been like this a lot when he was younger because he got so sensitive to the light that he would cry from the light burning his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen something like that?
Not firsthand in my cases, but I've,
read
several of, these cases where a child usually be going with is kept isolated in a room, locked up by parent or caregiver for years, and their eyes become so sensitive to light that it's painful.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of Otis's daughters said that whenever it would rain, the kids would go outside and look up into the rain and wait for Jesus to come. That's just a weird. Yep. Mm-hmm. Now, after hearing all of this, Detective Go wanted Michelle to do a polygraph test. He's kind of annoying. I mean, he pursues, he does push through, but in the beginning, I feel like he doesn't want to deal with it, honestly.
I don't understand why the polygraph is ever used by anyone ever.
This is the 90s when they still felt it was.
Yeah, but it is still used by people. They still use it all the time. And I'm like, what the fuck for? It's pseudoscience. It's gibberish. It's nonsensical. It's not used in court. So what is the point of it?
You can ask me my name and my birthday, and I will fail. Because if I'm hooked up to something to my heart, immediately my heart starts pounding.
It's stupid.
Michelle agreed to the polygraph test. And she passed.
Okay.
So maybe this would be enough for Detective Go.
It's weird that they would have the complainant take a polygraph. To me, this is weird because even if she passes, great, but that itself is not admissible evidence that anything happened. So what is the point? Typically, cops will polygraph the suspect. Again, they can't use that, but it's mostly just to fuck with their head.
Yeah.
But
I think, again, I mentioned this in the first episode, the culture of the 90s was kids lie.
Oh, yeah.
Satanic panic, all of that. No one believed in anything. I mean, what was those kids down south? The 5 or something. Where was that?
The West Memphis 3 in Arkansas.
The 3. Oh, I get them mixed up with the Central Park 5.
Yeah. Central Park 5 was
I get the numbers.
The rapist of the jogger.
Yes. All of that is what's going on right now. So I think that these detectives, the police station, all of them didn't believe these kids.
Yeah.
And it's easier to not believe them.
And kids are fanciful. They make up stories. They're imaginative. They have,
But do they make up stories like the Love and Belly game?
No.
Do they make up that kind of shit? They don't.
Numerous sexual assault trials involving children witnesses and, very, very young. And, the defense is often that they're just making it up. But they'll give details in kid terminology that they're just like, well, where would this 4-year-old know these things if not from experience? Like, it doesn't make any sense that a 4-year-old would speak in these terms about things that they should have no knowledge of.
Yes. While the kids were split up in different homes, some of them had siblings with them, others were on their own, depending on how they got along and age and all that. Yeah. Eddie Lee and May would sneak to see the kids, even though there was a no contact order in place. They would be on the school grounds during recess or before after school. They'd kind of sneak up onto the school grounds. Again, the 90s.
This is the pre-Columbine.
Yes.
Before there was a mass shooting every other day.
Yep. They would go onto the school grounds, try to talk to them. They would sneak to the churches they would go to. They would sneak phone calls. Whatever they could do to contact them, they would.
Yeah.
James Sexton, one of the sons, he called his uncle Otis one time and told him that his dad said that he was going to pick them up that night because James was staying with some other brothers at a foster home. James hates his parents. When he got out, he didn't turn back.
Okay, good.
So when his dad said he's going to pick them up, James did the right thing and called Otis.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, Dad said this. Yeah. What do we do?
Dad said he's going to violate a court order that should violate his bond and land him in jail.
Yes. So Otis called DHS. And upon interviewing the boys, they admitted that Eddie Lee had arranged secret walks with them.
Okay.
So he's having walks with them, making plans, all this. So you just mentioned violating the no contact order.
Yeah.
What would that do legally?
That should revoke his bond and he winds up in jail. At least that's how it happens now.
What do you mean bond? He's never been arrested yet.
He's not been charged with a crime though. So
yeah. It's only a no contact order. So he's not out on bond.
But it's a no contact order issued by a judge, I'm assuming, of probate court. So he still could be found in contempt of court and then lodged in jail for a term that the judge could determine, a week, a month, whatever, for contempt. Because just to hey, I put this order in line, you're breaking it. That's the
Okay.
consequence. Can't hold them
Okay.
indefinitely, but there's ways to like,
Well,
all right,
shit.
you're going to spend a week in jail until you learn your lesson.
That pisses me off even more then, because I didn't know, because I knew there was nothing legal, really. Like, he wasn't arrested yet. There were no charges on him. So I just thought the no contact order was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize they could take action on him, because he violates it the whole time. He never stops.
Yeah.
And there's evidence of him. The kids say things and the police did nothing.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to Charles, who's 17. He was in a foster home. He was still in secret contact with his dad as well. Only a few days after their removal from the house on Caroline Street, Charles and Matt, brothers, went to the skate park and called their mom to let them know where they were. Eddie Lee and May then came and picked them up and took them back to their house, and they offered the boys pizza and cigarettes, winning them over. Eddie Lee made a deal with his son Charles that Charles would tell him everything, let him know where he was, where he goes, and what he does. Charles does say today that he regrets letting him know. Well, Charles is 17. He's an adult now, and, you know.
James was younger, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, James Younger already knew what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
So
when it was discovered that Charles had given up where he was staying, they moved him to a juvenile detention facility.
So they jailed the victim for violating the no contact order.
Honestly, that's how I felt
not
too.
Not the assailant for violating the no contact order. Cute.
That's what I thought. And I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt of like, maybe it's a nice juvenile facility or something, but I don't think so. I don't know any stories, nothing that happened there, but I thought the same thing. Why are they punishing him and not going after the parents that brought them into their house and created this plan with them?
And you said gave him cigarettes, so some of them are minors, so that is a crime right there. It's enough to arrest and jail him on right there.
So you're right. If they really wanted him, they could have had him time and time and time again. We don't need 3 parts to this story.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Even if nothing sticks long term for conviction, just make his life miserable by bringing him in every week to charge him with some petty offense.
Yeah.
Just to be like, we're watching you.
Keep him away from the kids. Keep him busy with his own shit, away from his family. My God. He's not like an upstanding person in the community either. Like there's no reason.
Yeah, it's not like he's the fucking mayor or a city commissioner that's bribing.
He doesn't have money.
He's
just
not
a piece
doing
of shit. All right. I gotta shake that one off a little bit.
Here's something the cop could have done. Go up to him during an interview and just slowly step, like as you're talking, just walk a step closer to him. Close the distance between you two. And eventually, he'll probably back up, as this is natural, until he hits a wall or whatever. He can't back up any further. Then he'll likely put his hand out to stop the cop. His fingers graze the cop. Boom. That's assault on an officer. It's enough to be arrested for.
Nice.
Cops do that shit all the time.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
When they know that someone's doing more.
Yeah, they'll go to a domestic violence situation. Yeah. The girl calls. Then when they get there, she's backing up on her story. So the cop just wants to get the assailant out of the house, but she's going back on her story. What can I do? Oh, I'll get him to assault me. All he has to do is touch me.
Yeah.
Not swing on me, not spit me, just lay his hand on me. Boom, that's enough.
Yep. And they do, a lot of them do use these little techniques in benefit for the victims. Like you mentioned. A lot of them are domestic violence. Yeah, they're talking to the husband, wife, the boyfriend, girlfriend, and they know that this girl is terrified of this man. And
she's not going to say it in earshot of her abuser.
But if they can get that man to touch them, then they can put charges on that man and at least get him out of the house for a little bit.
Testify. They can we responded to a call and he touched me. Boom.
It's me against him, not her against him. Yeah.
There are creative ways to prosecute people.
I wonder if it's just the Sextons were just a family that no one wanted to deal with. You know, just please go away. Which is not good, but
they were isolationist a little bit, like they keep their kids locked up in the house, but they
had neighbors.
They did have neighbors. They went to school. They were on the record. This wasn't like some family like Sonny Bean living out in the sticks that they were born without birth certificates and no one knew how many they were or where they're at. Like they're on paper. They have a residence. They're going to school. There's documentation.
Yeah. There's
outside officials around their children at least all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
Yeah. These kids were failed.
Yeah.
Everyone around them failed them.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a big sidetrack. But Charles is now in the juvenile detention facility.
Mm-hmm.
He's still... Now, I don't understand this. Can a no contact order still allow visitation with a caseworker or social worker there?
There can be, the judge can set parameters and say no contact except with licensed professional, DHS worker, CPS worker, whatever in the room.
A chaperone.
A chaperone, yeah. Like limited contact in a controlled setting kind of thing with a supervisor or a chaperone, yeah.
Because Eddie Lee did visit Charles at the facility, like appropriately during
obviously
a visitation.
He can't sneak into a juvenile facility like go to school or whatever, but yeah.
However, though, the caseworker that was supposed to be overseeing it stepped away for a second, but that was enough time for Eddie Lee and Charles to plan an escape. Eddie Lee told Charles to meet him back behind the church to be picked up, a church that was nearby. And later that night, Charles went back behind the church and was picked up by his dad and his brother, Eddie Jr. They then drove Charles to Indiana and dropped him off with an aunt and uncle on May's side.
So kidnapping across state lines, that just went federal.
Right? Nothing comes of this.
That's federal. This
is just swept under the rug.
That's one of the principal main crimes that are federal is kidnapping because it crosses state lines. When it crosses state lines.
Yep. Now, by this time, 3 months had passed. And in the first episode, I mentioned how they only had 30 days. They've been getting extensions because more evidence is coming out. So now it's been 3 months and the kids are still spread out. All right, now we're going to jump back to Michelle. She was getting her stomach pumped at the hospital in April of 1992. Yeah. From trying to
overdose on pills.
Yeah. Yes. After her stay at the hospital, she went to her Uncle Otis's house, and eventually she ran away from there. There was a fight between Michelle and her Uncle Otis and her aunt. Michelle called her aunt a bitch, and Otis hit Michelle across the face because of that.
Okay. They're having a family squabble. She calls her aunt a bitch, and he just reflexively don't call your aunt that. And just... Yeah. Not justifying it, but I see that. That's different than prolonged systemic
he is not
abuse.
Like an abuser. He felt bad for doing that. He regretted it. He was like, shit, I shouldn't have done that. But it did happen, and it caused her to leave the house.
Okay.
She walked out, and she found a local liquor store where she called her mom. May told Michelle everything she wanted to hear. May said repeatedly that she loved her, which Michelle was not used to hearing. She said that she left Eddie Lee and that he was gone and that she could come home and blah, 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 blah. Michelle agreed and said, yes, I'll come home. And May called DHS. She calls the social worker, Mel Fletcher, and he agrees to pick up Michelle and take her home.
Wait a minute. The abusing mom calls DHS, and DHS is like, well, bring him back to the bigger abuser.
I mean, Eddie Lee supposedly is out of the house.
Yeah.
But
we know he's not.
Exactly.
So why would he be?
Well, he's already been showing signs that's already on record that he's sneaking to see his kids. Why do we believe them? Why do we believe them? And Mel Fletcher does catch some shit for this.
Good.
The DHS people were like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. And he was like, well, she's over 18. Like, what am I supposed to do? Well,
she's over 18. Why are you involved at all?
Exactly. That was my thought. Why are you
She's
even
not a
part
child,
of it?
so why are you... This is an adult woman calling with her adult mom having an issue. Not my jurisdiction.
You're
an
not
adult.
part of it. Yeah. Stay away. Why are you handing her over? Why? Yeah. So on the way, Mel is driving and Michelle starts to have a really severe panic attack, but she doesn't know what it is. So if anyone's ever dealt with anxiety, panic,
she's having a heart attack or dying.
She thinks she's dying and she's acting like she's, I mean, and if you've seen me have panic attacks, it looks like I'm dying. It feels like I'm dying. You have to just get through it. But if you don't know how to get through it, it'll get worse. And this was happening to Michelle in the back of Mel's car. And when they arrived, Mel Fletcher was like, we need to call an ambulance. And May is calm. Barely even gives it a look.
Yeah, because I'm going to go on a limb here that she doesn't give a shit.
I actually wrote that. Her mom don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mel Fletcher was the one that called the ambulance and had them come over. And Mel's story, he said that he told the paramedics, don't release her to her mom, send her to a group home. There's no record of that. So either the paramedics just didn't listen to him or Mel never said that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Mel never said it. He seems to be poor judgment guy here.
Yeah, and he probably said it after they got in trouble. Well,
Probably.
I yelled to the paramedics to do that.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
When Michelle was released, her mom was there to take her home.
And her mom is the quintessential, what we would call a procurer for her husband to molest kids. She just produces them literally in-house.
Yes.
And they're just a conveyor belt of kids for him to molest. That is the perfect procurer for a pedophile.
Yeah. So Fletcher's out of the picture now. That's his only thing he does is this, which is not good.
He showed up to felch it up.
He did. He did. On September 1st, 1992, a handwritten affidavit was sent to the Jackson police and the DHS attorneys. Shelley recanted her statements. Michelle.
Yeah.
She was living back home for about a month, and then she moved in with Pixie and Joel in their apartment. Then, when she was of no more use to Eddie Lee, Eddie told Pixie to kick Michelle out. And Pixie did as her father told her to.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle then moved in with a friend from the women's shelter. May clearly lied, of course, about Eddie Lee being gone. He was there every night.
Deep down, he loves me.
Mm-hmm. Michelle said that Eddie Lee was the one that wrote the statement, and she just copied it in her handwriting. Yeah. Turns out that Eddie Lee, he technically wasn't staying in the house anymore. He was in an RV camper 10 minutes away from the house. Okay. And he would come over every night, though. He was over every day. He just had a place to show them, like, oh, I'm here, you know. But
he say he wasn't in the house. He was in the shed in the backyard.
I mean, he was like 10 minutes away, but still right around the corner. When Otis found out about Eddie Lee being in the camper, because May told them that he's gone because she wants the kids back in the house. So she's playing the story of Eddie Lee's just gone.
Yeah, he disappeared one day.
Yeah, and Otis is like, he's right here.
Yeah, there's his Winnebago.
Yeah,
right there.
So Otis calls DHS, and they began checking in on the house on Caroline Street a little bit more. They never found anything, though.
Otis just propped a chair up against the outside of that Winnebago door and firebombed it.
Yeah.
Would have solved a lot of problems. He probably wouldn't have gotten charged either because it's fucking Ohio. Yeah. And apparently no one in this case gets charged, so...
It's weird.
Should have just killed the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, September 28th, there was yet again another hearing about custody that May was there for. And May said that she was going to therapy and that her therapist advised that some of her children come back. The therapist was not at this hearing. May said the therapist said. And we trust these people. Well, the judge did. The judge, Julie Edwards, made poor choices as well. Let me say that again. Julie Edwards.
So this judge allowed hearsay as evidence.
Yes. So Julie Edwards, the judge, allowed Chris and Kimberly to move back home. Kimberly was 8 at the time and Chris was like 12, 13. So some of the two youngest ones.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't said anything. They're the two that haven't told any stories. They're also the younger ones. And Chris and Kimberly were constantly visited by their dad in secret. They were terrified.
Yeah.
They couldn't say anything. He had them. The judge also awarded custody of Charles to May. Charles, who's 17 and in Indiana.
The one who escaped from a juvenile facility and was kidnapped essentially across state lines.
Yes. And during...
No one has a problem with the fact that, hey, you were supposed to be in essentially kid jail. But now you're in a different state. We can't account for that. No one's like...
Yeah. I don't understand this. I don't get it. Maybe there's pieces I'm missing, and honestly, there's so much information. If anyone out there wants to let me know if I'm missing something, I will correct myself. Like, I would love to know that they did something here, but everything I looked at, this just went right under the rug. Charles is in Indiana, and the judge goes, yeah, you can have Charles back. And then weird, Charles just appears at the house eventually. Like, anyway, 4 days after the ruling, the DHS staff, who did not like this ruling, they approached the judge with new information. They actually spoke with May's therapist, and he never recommended that her kids be returned. He actually said she hasn't been to enough sessions for that. He's against it. So the staff tell the judge this, and the judge is like, it's fine. We're not going to change what I decided. My decision stands. And she felt like Eddie Lee's gone, so it's fine.
Yeah. But
When presented with new information, it is okay to change your mind. Americans, all of you Americans, if there is new information presented to you, it is okay to change your mind.
But I'm dug in, and I'll never change, no matter what facts are presented or the evidence that's laid out before me.
Yeah.
It's my right as a dumb American.
Is your name Julie Edwards? Fucking judge. Sorry. There's so many people. Mel Fletcher, Julie Edwards, fucking A. I mean, Glenn Goh doesn't seem to really believe Michelle at first, but he still did his job. He was like, well, I still have to do a due process here. And then eventually he does.
Yeah.
So he, I think, fine. Otis, fine. But like, come on.
Yeah.
So 1 month after Charles was returned home from Indiana, Lana, who's 12 and still in foster care, because she is telling her stories, she said that her brother Charles raped her. After Lana realizes that Charles moved back in to the home with her little sister, Kimberly.
So maybe he should have stayed in the juvenile facility.
Yeah. So Lana didn't want the same thing that happened to her to happen to her youngest sister.
Maybe we can get one out of the 12 out of there without being raped.
Yeah. Lana said that Charles raped her in the bathroom one time at their family home. Charles liked to play a game called the Statue of Liberty, where Charles would stand like the Statue of Liberty, really still, and then make his sisters perform oral on him.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know how many sisters. Lana said sisters.
Yeah.
I don't know. Lana for sure experienced this, she says, which I believe. When Lana was asked about abuse from her father, she told them about satanic rituals and voodoo dolls. She mentioned an upside-down cross and how her dad would wear a hooded robe. Then...
Upside-down cross. Maybe he was just a fan of St. Peter.
Yeah, doubt it. Then she would just drift off into that Sexton stare.
Yeah. Disassociate.
Yeah. So she would start telling a story and then kind of float away.
This is the kind of case that is begging... Not to advocate vigilantism, but this is the kind of case that just begs for some citizen just to have enough of this guy.
Yeah.
And just
Shoot
take
him.
care of it.
Well, when DHS brought in brother James, who's 16, brought him in to take his statement, James said that Lana told him that Charles put his penis up her butt. When they asked James if Charles had ever done that to him, he replied with yes. James said about 2 months before they went into foster care, Charles asked him to come upstairs. Charles then offered James a watch if he would lie down on the bed and let Charles do something to him. When James laid down, he was told to take off his pants, and Charles then got on top of his brother and raped him. James said that Charles then did the same thing to the other brother, Chris, later that night.
Okay.
Now, finally, with this new information, the judge does change her decision.
Oh, how stunning and brave of her.
Yeah. She gives control of Charles back to DHS, allowing Charles to go to his aunt's house in Ohio, not a detention facility or anything like that.
We know you escaped jail and jumped state lines for that, but come back, please, and we'll just give you somewhere nice to stay.
The aunt in Ohio is May's sister. So he stayed with May's family in Indiana and is now staying with May's sister in Ohio. Why would the judge think that's okay? Because you know what? He does end up back in Indiana. And yeah. So he ends up back in Indiana with his aunt and uncle that he was there with before. When Detective Glenn Goh reaches out to May to interview Charles, because Charles is on his list of interviews, she at first said yes, and then he was a no-show. Detective Goh calls May saying, like, what's up? You said yes to this. May says, well, we hired an attorney, and the attorney told us that Charles should not do the interview. And she also tells Detective Goh that she sent Charles to his aunt and uncles in Indiana and that it just didn't work out with her sister in Ohio.
Yeah.
And that's okay?
Yeah.
That's fine? November 17th, 8 days later.
I don't know what other cases are going on that these guys at the time are prosecuting and investigating. Like, what other cases are happening in Canton, Ohio that are so noteworthy that all of their resources are tied up investigating those and not this massive one?
Yeah, I know. What's happening in Canton, Ohio right now?
Oh, we were really busy doing this
Stark
other
County,
thing.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Listeners, if you're from Stark County, Ohio, let us know, because what the fuck is going on?
What big case for the 70s, 80s, and 90s took away attention from this case? It must have been bigger is all I can think of.
It's got to be way more.
Benefit of the doubt, it had to be worse. Maybe a family of 24 kids instead.
Now, November 17th, 8 days later, after Detective Glengo talks to May and is like, where's Charles, all that. It's 8 days later, and DHS cannot locate May or her kids. Crazy. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, everyone.
Yep. And then the middle school calls DHS and says that Chris has been absent all week and most of last week. So almost 2 weeks, and the school is just now calling? Like, it's not just police. It's everyone. It's everyone. It's everyone. A few days later, the Cleveland Channel 5 newsroom receives a call from Eddie Lee. He said he's tired of being harassed. He said that the DHS had bogus allegations, and he has barricaded himself with his wife and kids in their house on Caroline Street. This is only a few months after the Ruby Ridge stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's like literally a few months later. I double checked on it because I was like, why is he so amped up here? In this moment, he's really amped up. And I'm like,
Ruby Ridge.
He wants a Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. And it's stupid, but it's what he wants. So he said he has everything boarded up. He has his wife and kids inside. And he told Channel 5, he said that he has weapons and would kill any DHS worker or police officer that pulled up into his drive. So it's a threat.
Yeah. Call me back when they show up and you start firing. Click.
Yeah.
Because you're a liar and I don't think you're going to do any of this.
And they also got Charles from Indiana, too.
Good.
Yeah, so and again, nothing ever comes of this whole Charles over the state lines. It just is nothing. I don't get it. So they begin getting ready for this big standoff. Eddie Lee and his kids, not the police.
Yeah.
I mean, the police are kind of getting ready, but like a week leading up to, this is like the week leading up to this phone call. Eddie Lee is getting ready. He's collecting weapons, gear, chicken wire, tons of food, propane, all of it. He's really
expensive things that a guy who's never been employed anywhere somehow is able to acquire.
Yeah. Oh,
it's the only system that seemed to work in this whole thing is the welfare system. Kept paying him his fucking checks.
Yeah.
But no one else in the government did anything.
Yeah, he was collecting money from his daughters as well. Like Sherry and Pixie were getting money for their kids, and he was getting all that. He was just getting everyone's money.
Yeah.
I think at one point, Sherry and Pixie alone were bringing in $50,000.
If only
not each, but like together, $50,000 from their benefits from the government.
Yeah. The people signing those checks were as slipshod in their duties as the judge and everybody else was. Maybe something would have happened sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. If he's not funded, how can he do all this?
If suddenly there's no money coming into the house.
Yeah. And he's just getting money without working, too. Like, he can do all these other things. Like, no one checked on this.
Yeah.
It is a lot harder now. Things are checked on more now. It's not this laissez-faire, so no one get all up in arms. Government should help their people.
Oh, yeah. I'm by no means anti-welfare at all. I'm not. Let me be clear on that. But I'm anti, obviously,
this
egregious pieces of shit just taking advantage of it.
Yeah, there should be a way to see this.
Looking at it.
Yeah. Anyway, the house was prepped for basically a zombie apocalypse. Everything was boarded up, they had shooting positions, and they were ready for a big standoff. Now, the police knew that Eddie Lee wanted a big show. Given what had just recently happened in our country, the police were like, we know what you want here, and we're not going to fight.
Don't even, he's not even wanted on anything, really. There's no charges, so, I'm having a standoff with cops. Why? We're not coming for you.
Yeah.
No.
So the police officers, detectives, whoever called, one of them called from his own office. And others went to a nearby dairy market, and they hung out there. There were a few on the scene, but most of them were nearby. They didn't want to show Eddie that he's getting all this. So they were calling him from this dairy mart and also from an office, talking to him on the phone.
Yeah.
After 3 hours of talking, Eddie Lee just willingly came out of his home and he was arrested.
No shots fired on his part?
Nope. No shots fired on anyone's parts.
So he's a big pussy.
He's clearly
all a chest-beating bitch. I mean, you wanted your fucking last stand Alamo. No one stopped you.
Yeah, he willingly came out. I don't know what the conversations were. Yeah. 3 hours of talking. They wore him down, I guess.
3 hours isn't even long. I've been to standoffs that have fucking taken days.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, 3 hours.
For me, it seems
That's
long.
a coffee break of a standoff. Shut the fuck up.
Eddie Lee was only charged for 2 misdemeanors, child endangering and inducing panic.
Okay.
What's inducing panic?
It's like exciting a disturbance, disturbing the peace.
Oh, just
I don't think Michigan has that exact phrase, but every state kind of phrases just
one of those
causing
things.
just being a, yeah.
Okay.
Causing a disturbance, interrupting the flow of the day.
There was a felony abduction charge that was on him as well.
Oh, how novel.
But that was dismissed because they couldn't find May or the kids to testify. So they're disappeared at this point.
Okay. Creatively, they
are gone.
Yeah. So they can't give witness testimony.
Mm-hmm. Eddie Lee was in jail for 3 days before posting the $7,500 bond, which is $16,871 today. Yeah.
No one questioned how he got $7,500.
Are you allowed to question it? I mean, you can question it, but can you even do anything as a...
No, I mean, if it's...
You know, like if they have it, what can you do? You know?
Yeah.
Eddie Lee was eventually sentenced to 180 days in jail, but also there was something with like a probation thrown in there, and he paid some like $100 in court fees. This felt... I didn't understand it.
Oftentimes, especially probably back in the 90s, for misdemeanors especially, you know, you get sentenced to 6 months in jail. They might replace that with 6 months of probation if your offense is low and there's, you know, jail overcrowding, and let's say you have good behavior for a month or two, whatever. So that could be what happened. It could have been a combination of he served a little bit of jail and then he did the rest of it on probation.
Yeah. There was another hearing set up for May Sexton for the custody of those 2 remaining children, Chris and Kimberly.
But she's in the wind, right?
But she never showed. None of them showed. And turns out Eddie Lee told them to flee the area.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's a charge of witness intimidation right there.
Yep. While May was missing during this time, she was really staying with her oldest son, well, her second oldest son, Eddie Jr., at his house. And then she ended up staying with their neighbor, Augusta Townsend, who is a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Eddie Lee and his family want help from a Black woman
like all
when they're
racists,
openly racist?
Well, you know,
like, I mean,
even the
she
races
was fine,
you hate,
but
they can, you know, they can have a use for you in certain times.
Yeah, I found that interesting. They found shelter with their Black neighbor. Yeah.
Every slave owner was a racist, but yet they still use the slaves.
Yeah. Anyway, just found that interesting. So then May and the kids were staying with Augusta Townsend, and Eddie Lee eventually caught up with them, and they all were staying with this neighbor. They stayed with her for about 2 weeks. Now, I don't think she really knew what was going on.
Yeah.
She was just trying to help out. But she did say that she noticed some oddities of the Sexton family when they were staying with her. She said that she had the boys, Chris, Charles, and Willie, sleep in the living room at night. And one time, Augusta came out of her room to get a drink of water, and she saw May performing oral on her son, Chris, while Charles watched.
Mm-hmm.
Then Augusta said she didn't really know what to do, so she went back into her bedroom, and then she began dropping major hints that she knew that they were weird and she needed them to leave.
How major? Like, hey, I saw mom blowing the sun.
Well,
That's a pretty major hint.
She's outnumbered by them quite a bit, and they have teenage sons. And
true.
Willie, the son Willie, is described as like, he's also slower mentally, but he is strong and big. Who is it? Like Lenny from the book of Mice and Men,
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
So he's an intimidating, just him alone. And then you have Eddie Lee, and then you have Charles. I don't blame her, but she did very much passive-aggressively push them out. Eddie Lee left to go get the RV camper, and then he came back with it. And before leaving, he left Augusta a little, I don't know, memento. He left behind a bullet standing on her kitchen counter as a warning.
A threat.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to jump back to Pixie and Joel real quick. Joel's Aunt Teresa couldn't find Joel again, and eventually she did go to the house on Caroline Street to just bang on that door and be like, where is my nephew? Pixie and Joel both answer the door, and they tell her that Eddie Lee left Pixie the house and that the rest of the family moved away. They did not tell Aunt Teresa that Pixie was pregnant again. Joel and Pixie had their baby in January of 1993.
Is this Joel's baby?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They named their son Charles, nicknamed Skipper, Lee Sexton. So after her brother and her dad. Yes.
Well, he's probably his own cousin, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's his own something.
Yeah, I don't know. Joel and Pixie visited his Aunt Teresa and said that they were moving out of their house on Caroline Street. They were looking to move back into that same apartment they had before. Joel gave his Aunt Teresa a hug goodbye and said, "I love you," and then a quick visit to his grandparents to show off the new baby. Looking back on it, Teresa was kind of like, I think he was saying goodbye to us. By February of 1993, so this was January where he visits his aunts.
Yeah, next month.
Next month, Joel and Pixie were reunited with the rest of the Sextons, and they also brought their 3 kids. So they're a family of 5 joining in on this RV adventure. The Sextons would start out in Indiana with their life on the run. They would travel from Oklahoma to Indiana because Eddie Lee was determined to prove that he's Native American, because he thought he would have a better standing in the courts or something.
Oh, but he's racist.
He's not Native American either, and he's racist. Yeah. So he's not. He just keeps claiming that in the background as well. He wants this fantasy that he doesn't have. Yeah. Eddie Lee had the boys training military style. They were gathering weapons, constantly going to the Army surplus store for supplies. He's getting them all paranoid and riled up. When Pixie and Joel arrived in February, things got crowded pretty quickly and tensions were rising. The boys in the RV were getting increasingly grossed out by their father and their sister's relationships. Charles said that Eddie would play this game with all the girls where he would put a piece of chocolate in between his lips and they would transfer the chocolate lip to lip. Also, once Pixie arrived, tensions rose between May and Eddie Lee. Eddie Lee became meaner to May, and May always acted jealous of Pixie.
Fuck May.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't give a shit if she, fuck her.
Yeah. Joel's time with the Sextons was the worst. They never treated him very well, and during this time, it was even worse. He was constantly the butt of the jokes. He was the literal punching bag for the family, and Eddie Lee viewed him as one of the women always tending to the kids as if that was a bad thing. Joel was a good dad, and he loved all of Pixie's kids like his own. He said that was his family, and those were his kids. He endured a lot of beatings. Whenever Eddie Lee wasn't around, the siblings would strike. As the Sexton family is prepping and getting ready in Indiana, there's another detective that comes onto the scene, Steve Reedy. He's trying to locate them, but he doesn't really know where to go. And at this point, the excuse for Steve Reedy is there's not much legal going on because they can't prove that Eddie Lee and May are together.
Yeah.
So they don't know what to do here on a legal standpoint. May did have custody of all the kids that were with her, so she wasn't doing anything wrong, technically. Charles turned 18 by now, so he can do whatever he wants, I guess, even though there's accusations of rape against him.
Sounds like he was doing whatever he wanted for his entire life.
I don't know why no one's looking for him. He did bad things too.
It's learned behavior.
Yeah, I don't blame him, but they should take him. You know, it's a reason to start removing at least and start the healing process. If there's ever a healing process after this.
Yeah, there's probably not.
Yeah. So the only thing that could be done was for DHS to put out a protective services alert. It goes out to police departments in nearby states, but those just really aren't taken as priority normally. In the month of May, the DHS legal team tried getting permanent custody of all of the Sexton minors. They were like, listen, if we have custody of them, we can say they're missing. Yeah. Let's look for them.
Finally in a race against the clock to get a minor out before they've aged out of it.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
We got to get these minors out before they stop being minors. We've only had a decade and a half to fucking work on this.
Yep.
We started this, there's only 6 kids. Now they've multiplied like amoebas.
Yep. They decide to put the notice of the custody hearing in the paper, hoping that this would make the Sextons surface.
Yeah, because they can read.
It worked. They surfaced, but they didn't get them.
Yeah.
4 days after the notice was in the paper, Matt Sexton went missing from his foster home. So it did the exact opposite. Why, if they're going to put this up as like a trap, Why wouldn't they have more observation on the kids that they still had custody over? Like, how did Matt just get taken?
Probably just short of manpower.
Yeah. The Sexton family, they did try to get Lana from her foster home when they got Matt as well, but it didn't work. Charles visited her at the school and told her to stay there for Eddie Lee to come pick her up, and she told her foster parents. She was like, fuck this. Lana was having a really hard time. She was one of Eddie Lee's favorites, and that comes with a price. Yeah, Lana's got a big story, so we're going to end there.
Okay.
The family, they're starting their life on the run now. They're currently in Indiana, but after this, it gets even more convoluted and difficult to keep track of.
Oh, good.
They do end up in Florida, hopping around.
Of course, they end up in Florida. All trash floats downstream.
Yes, so things do get more intense from here. We heard most of the stories, but there are more stories, and there's one in particular that is worse, and in my opinion, than what I've heard. Actually, shit, there's a few. Oh, God.
Here's how I want this to end. I want all the kids to tear apart their parents by the limbs. And like, as you raised, the point you raised, we outnumber them. We are physically bigger and able to handle ourselves now. Why don't we kill them and be the new kings of this, king and queen of this cult? It's
that culty side of it. That's the culty side of it. Is like, why didn't they do more?
Yeah.
I mean, they're raised in this.
Yeah.
And they are, it's one of the, I think it was Wayne Welsh, one of the DHS workers commented on the side of like, I've worked with like cult people before, and this feels very similar to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We will have our third part up. I'm going to be done after 3. I can't do more than 3 parts. I'm dying here. So while you're waiting for the third part of this awful Sexton saga, you can follow us on Instagram at Borrowed Bones Podcast. If you want, you can still follow us on Blue Sky.
Yeah, that's still a thing.
I'm still going to keep it, but I know it's a little rough right now, but we're going to try and make it better. But yes, Borrowed Bones Podcast on Blue Sky and on Instagram. Thank you. Also, remember to rate and review. Helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.